Have you got the one with the broken Meeple on it? Hello and welcome to the show. Yes, as you can see from the t-shirt, if you were an attendee at the UK Games Expo, I was there the whole of last weekend and I had a great time, as I'm sure all of the 16,000 other people did. Yes, according to the figures released by the UK Games Expo, it was about 16,000 plus unique attendees with over 30,000 some attendees over the weekend, which means we are officially the third biggest convention for board games in the world. The third. We have overtaken Origins as the third biggest. Now, of course, we're never going to get to the lengths where we are as big as Gen Con or Essen Spiel. I mean, okay, it's not a bad thing to aspire to that kind of thing, but I think we're at a stage where we don't quite need to be that big, okay? We really don't need to be too big about it. So the purpose of this video is for me to just basically go over what I experienced at the UK Games Expo itself. So what games did I play? What people, who did I meet? What did I get to demo? Is there any juicy gossip? That kind of thing. Just basically giving my thoughts on the convention as a whole, because now this will be the fourth year I think I've now been to the UK Games Expo. I started when it used to be in the Hilton, just the Hilton Hotel, and in recent years it has now expanded into the NEC Centre in Birmingham, the outskirts of Birmingham, and it's certainly improved as a result of getting the extra space. So the expo itself, it took place last weekend, so I believe this was Friday the 2nd of June to Sunday the 4th of June. It takes place over 3 days, essentially 2.5 in a sense, because it finishes slightly earlier on Sunday and doesn't start until a little bit later in the morning on Friday. Well, if you're a regular attendee, that is. The press get a little bit of a preview beforehand, but that's a little perk. The convention itself is a mix of open gaming and trade hall exhibitions. You get people who are wanting you to playtest their games, wanting you to demo what they've released, big publisher names saying here's all our stuff, try it out and buy it if you can, but also various other small folk just saying, here's our app that we're going to use with this, or here's our, our events that we're planning to host. There's all sorts of people in the trade hall, as well as podcasters and reviewers galore like myself. The open gaming is also taking place in that hall, but it also has some bases in the Hilton Hotel where you literally just go there and play some games. It can be ones you've brought from home, or more than likely it'll be something you've purchased on the day and you're eager to get it onto the table and try it out. It was a little bit of a problem this year though with that, if I might be brutally honest. There was some other event going on in the Monarch Suite in the Hilton this year, and I'm perfectly sure that the organisers of the Games Expo were aware of this beforehand and just couldn't do much about it. It's more to do with the Hilton than it is the organisers of the Expo, really. But it did cause a bit of a problem with open gaming, because those rooms were packed. I mean, they were just absolutely rammed with people. Trying to get a table anywhere to play games, especially on the Saturday night, was a big problem. And there was only so much room in the trade hall, and obviously that shut at 5 o'clock, so you couldn't do much more then. Hopefully, as we expand into more space in the future, we'll be able to essentially use another hall in the NEC for open gaming, or at least get the Monarch Suite back, and that will solve quite a few problems there. But generally, I had a really good time at the expo itself. It was great fun. I got to meet all sorts of people, be it bloggers, podcasters, publishers, or even just you, the general public, who came up and said hi, whether I was working on the booth or just walking around and generally doing stuff, or even if I was in the middle of a game, people just wandering up and saying, hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. And it throws me off a little bit, only because I'm not used to that kind of thing, being small fry. But it is perfectly welcome for anybody to come up and say hi. I really don't have any problem with that. I mean, it's all about community engagement, and I love to engage with you people as well. Now, I try to be a little bit more reserved when I buy games at conventions now, and I do buy a few things, but I don't go mad. I get a few review copies, and I like to sort of think, you know what, I just want to try games out. I've never really thought of the Expo as being like the convention with the new hotness, because most of the publishers will reserve that kind of thing for Gen Con, for example, and possibly Origins. So Expo tends to have a lot of the smaller games that are like hidden gems, but also allows you to demo some of the big ones to at least get a feel of them before they eventually get released at something like Gen Con or Essen. But the Expo still had plenty for me to try, and I'm just going to go over quickly quite a few of the games that I tried out with some preliminary thoughts, because some of these are going to get reviewed in the future. First up is Century Spice Road. Now, if I wanted to talk about the hot game of the convention, it would be this one, without a shadow of a doubt. Because this one was selling like hotcakes before I even had a chance to demo the game. And that was the first one I tried. The first thing I did was I headed to Estevium Games to try out Century Spice Road, because I had heard about it and people had told me it was a Splendor killer. Well, sort of, but not quite. Century Spice Road is this little card tableau game where you are buying these action cards and you have spices that you're trying to collect, although to be fair, the theme is tacked on. The spices are basically different coloured cubes. You are trying to buy cards, a bit like how you do in Splendor with the gems, but you're using the cubes to buy the cards instead, and they're worth so many points. But you use these action cards from another row, which allow you to gain more cubes, to convert this colour into this colour, this many into this many, that kind of thing. It's all about shenanigans with the cubes. That's essentially the crux of the game. There's also a kind of small world style selection where if you further along the row, if you want to choose an action card there, then you have to pay, you have to put a cube on the cards as you go along. It's a very simple game, but it has got more depth than Splendor because you have to do more of the shenanigans with those cards before you actually get to buy the others. It's good. I'm getting a copy very soon and I expect to be reviewing it in the near future. In fact, it might even be the first video review I put out on this channel, but we'll see. But at the moment, I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence about it. It is a good game so far. I've only had the one play, so I can't really give it a full review right now. But I don't think it's going to kill Splendor. I think the two can sit alongside each other because they do feel a little different. But if you think they're too similar, I don't think this one's going to replace it either. I think it's a case, I'm expecting it to be a case where if you have Splendor, I think you'll be kind of sorted with Splendor, especially as a new expansion's coming out. We'll get onto that in a minute. But if you haven't got Splendor, you might want to look into Century Spice Road first and then see whether that's your cup of tea. But I'm looking forward to trying out more games of it, just to see if any of my previous sort of assumptions when I did the demo, well, I mean, it was a full game, it wasn't necessarily a demo, but I decided to hold back and just see how more plays of it will pan out before I give this one a full review. And speaking of Splendor, just to segue into that one, there was the expansion. The expansion to Splendor Cities, which is essentially 4 modules. And we only got to play one of the modules. It was one that added these extra cards, these red-backed cards, to every row on the board. So the level 1 cards, level 2 to level 3. The level 1s were money bag cards. They essentially bolted onto the cards you already had and added an extra one of that gem. So nothing special. But they were kind of like, they had similar costs and they weren't too difficult to buy. The second level had cards which allowed you to reserve nobles, which was quite interesting because usually you're on a race to get those. But they also had cards that could let you get level 1 cards for free, which I thought was quite good because then you could pull off like nice little chain combos. And on level 3 you had similar things, except that it managed to get you a level 2 card for free, which could then chain into a level 1 if you wanted. But what I really liked about the level 3 ones was that you could actually get cards that gave you victory points and a gem, but you bought it by discarding some cards you'd already bought previously. So rather than having the cards, you had to get rid of them. It made it quite accessible to get some of those higher point cards. And I think actually it didn't speed up the game that much, but I think it did have a small effect, and that was with 4 of us playing. The other modules vary. I don't know much about 2 of the bigger modules, the more complex ones, but I do know that the other module that I'm really looking forward to trying is one that replaces all the nobles, because to be fair, I think the nobles are actually the weak link of Splendor. I was never a big fan of those because winning the game without getting one of those nobles is, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I've yet to do it. I have to get those nobles in order to win it. You know, you're relying far too much on card luck in order to not do it. But the module in the expansion replaces the nobles with these tiles that have alternative victory point conditions. So they've got similar things like the nobles where you have to have so many of blue, so many of green, or so many of red, whatever, etc. But you also had a different varying amount of victory points. So you might not have needed to get many cards, but you had to get 17 victory points, not 15. You might have had to only get 11 victory points, but you need a lot of different cards. That I'm really looking forward to, because variable endgame conditions is something I really like in games, and it also removes the nobles, which is my weak link of Splendor. So I think that module alone is going to really have a good effect on me. The only problem I see with these expansions is that they don't quite gel together. The one I just mentioned that I demoed doesn't work with this replacing the nobles one, because some of the cards allow you to reserve nobles, so you got to have them in the game. Now the others I've heard gel with it a bit more, but I wish there was a little bit more compatibility. But we'll see. I'm really excited for just generally a lot of stuff that Asmodee is putting out. You know, Asmodee had some really nice stuff on their press preview stand. You know, I didn't get to demo these because these were literally just like, here's the box, you know, show it, it looks nice. But for example, I saw the reprint of When I Dream. This is a cool little party game that I've seen the Dice Tower play live. Now, this is a reprint, which means it has different artwork to the Vincent Dutrait one that was in the previous one, which is a shame because Vincent Dutrait does brilliant art. But that's not to say that the art in this is bad. I think the art in this is still really good. It won't have the same kind of feel, but it's still good. So I'm looking forward to trying this one out, because when I've seen it played, it does look like some very nice, simple party fun. As well as that, they also had the Ticket to Ride Germany map, which is going to bring back a similar mechanic to the Marklin Passengers, which I'm really looking forward to. I think the Germany map is one that could work quite well with Ticket to Ride, and to be honest, it's another Ticket to Ride map, so what more do you want, eh? It's going to have, I think, another set of trains though, so I think it's like another base set. So if you already have a lot of those pieces, then well, expect to get a few more spares. And on top of that, I mean, they had all sorts. The City Splendor, they had the Ticket to Ride, they had When I Dream, but oh yes, they also had anniversary pack expansions for Seven Wonders. Yes, remember how Arkham Horror gave you an expansion for the expansions? Well, this one's doing exactly the same thing. You've got an anniversary pack for cities and one for leaders, and they both just give you more of those cards. So you got more leaders, and you got more black cards. More variety for Seven Wonders? Sign me up, please. That's exactly what I'm after. So yeah, I was really excited for stuff that Estevium had on their, Estevium and Asmodee had on their booth during the press preview. But I should start talking about other games, really, ones that I actually demoed. So let's go down a little bit now in my expectations and take on Batman the board game, I think it's called. I think it's just Batman the board game, or it's just called Batman. This is meant to be a miniatures game, which essentially has taken the Conan mechanic and transferred it to Batman. Now, people say this is essentially a reskin of Conan. I don't think that does it justice. I think literally the people who designed this took the Conan box, scribbled over Conan, wrote in Batman in felt tip, and then sticky taped a photo of Batman over Conan on the box. It is literally that much of a direct copy. Now, I'm sure the publisher has already mentioned this in things like Kickstarter and stuff like that. But yeah, if you're expecting a really different game, don't. This is basically Conan with a Batman theme. But that's not to say it's bad. The Conan board game was still quite entertaining. I think it had a lot of improvements needed to be made, and the rulebook at first was atrocious. A worst rulebook I'd read in a while, and even the reprinted one online, the PDF, wasn't that much better. I mean, it worked, but still, there was a lot of ambiguous questions. But I was more annoyed with, well, I'll get onto that in a minute. The Batman one still looks very good though. The boards look amazing, the miniatures look amazing, Batman's got this really cool pose with his cape, there was Bane there, he looked really cool, Catwoman looked a little weird, and that was who I was playing at the time, but, she seemed pretty cool, and a guy called Red Hood, which looked pretty cool. He had this really cool Gatling gun that you got to fire, but my knowledge of the Batman lore is obviously a little bit limited because I don't actually know who Red Hood is. So yeah, sorry about that. If you're a Batman fan, that's like sacrilege to you. But yeah, I'm kind of I have no idea who Red Hood is. Something to do with being the Joker or something. I don't know. I need to read up on this stuff. I watch the TV series sometimes. I watch the movies like full off, but I've not really read the comics, so my knowledge on the lore is a little bit limited, despite the fact that I love superheroes so much. There's only so much time in the world. But this one has the same problem that I had with Conan. There's not enough time in the rounds. There just really isn't. We had to defuse C4 in a subway station before it blew up underneath a police station or something. So cool theme, cool setting, cool scenario. You bait up a bunch of random thugs, and Bane's there to cause issues as well. The annoying thing is, though, is that you had to defuse at least enough C4 so that there wasn't too armed by the end of the 6 rounds. All his guys are literally within walking distance of this C4 and just has to roll dice in order to arm them. You have to run across a ton of bad guys, a ton of terrain, including difficult terrain, and get to those, and have enough gems left, and do the dice rolls, which is actually trickier for the heroes than it is for the bad guys to do, which is kind of weird. But you've only got 6 rounds. It takes a long time to get across that map, unless you want to exhaust every gem you've got. And therefore, we lost just, but this was when they were rolling bad. The Overlord was actually rolling quite bad for the C4, so we had a chance, but then I got there and I rolled excessively bad, because that's what I do. My luck is really bad with dice. And then I just had that problem of, well, I've messed up that die roll. Well, that's it. That's a whole round costed. And because you have to waste time in passive mode to get a lot of gems back, that's another round wasted. And you've only got 6 rounds. It's just not enough time. What if he'd managed to arm all 4 bombs? You would have had physically no chance to get through that scenario. So it really needs to have more time. I mean, why have a time limit like that? Or I suppose with C4, yeah, you kind of need a time limit. But why not have something like, why not add more rounds? Say maybe 8 to 10 rounds or something. 2 more rounds I think would have been a nice little balancing act. But yeah, it's really short. I don't like the fact that the time just seems to end a little prematurely for it. It's like literally like, oh, the thing's going to blow up, right, jump in! And it blows up. The end, mini adventure. It didn't really impress me that much. The models are great, the artwork is amazing, and if you like miniature games, and if you like the old Conan one, if you were a big lover of the Conan one, I think you're going to love this one, because personally, Batman greater than Conan. That's the thing. But yeah, if you weren't that big on the Conan one, then this isn't gonna change your mind, because it's essentially the same game with some felt tip crossed out Conan on it. Now let's tune into something that was a lot more enjoyable. In fact, this was probably my highlight of the convention game-wise, and that was the eagerly anticipated First Martians from Portal. Now, First Martians is essentially Robinson Crusoe on Mars. That is pretty much the thing. If you liked Robinson Crusoe, I see no reason why you wouldn't like this First Martians. And I know I've apologised enough in the past for calling Robinson Crusoe overrated. I realised it was much better as a solo game or a 2-player game than it was as a 3 or 4-player game. And, I learned my lesson. I now have it on my shelf. In fact, you might even be able to... Yep, it's over there. Robinson Crusoe, 2nd edition. Really good game. I play it solo way more often than I do it multiplayer. But First Martians looks like it actually might work quite well as a multiplayer game, because the app does what the event cards did in the previous game, and that was like one of the best things about it. The fact that you had these events that you drew, you read out the first half, and then depending on what you did, you shuffled it back in the deck, and then it might come back to haunt you another time. Brilliant. Well, now that's handled by the app. So it will tell you that you should do this task, otherwise you expect consequences. And those consequences can be character specific, which is even better for the theme and the story. By the time you've finished a game of this, you've told a pretty good story. In fact, I was with 3 strangers. I had never met these people before. They were very friendly, whoever was in that game. And we had a great fun. We just did the introduction scenario, which was quite easy, even though we had it on medium difficulty. But it's an introduction scenario. It didn't worry too much about production. And it is meant to teach you the rules of the game. So what more do you want? But it basically meant that we had to build some stuff, plant a seed, grow a garden, like Matt Damon style, and we also had to keep the place under control. And the good thing with this was that it was an easy scenario to figure out, and we got on it. But it quickly showed us just how very easy it is for systems to start failing, and how resources are quite tight. But we told some good stories, like I went out on a mission in the little, what they call it, Mars rover thing or something, and excavated a few places to get some parts. The lady in our group was obsessed with keeping morale down and keeping the stress up, although that caused a few problems because I joked that whilst I was out in the rover, her character had basically done a bake sale to, spice up the morale of everyone, and then the app said that there was a massive electrical fault in her location. So it's kind of like, right, she had a bake sale, but she basically blew up the oven, and then because she didn't sort it out, later on the app came up with a addition to that where catastrophic explosions took place. So literally we left her with one job, just do a bake sale, and apparently that was too much of a problem, as the kitchen was a sad mess by the time we left it. And we were also obsessed with building one of the upgraded rooms, which, funny enough, was a games room, with like a controller symbol on it. And I was joking with one of the other guys that, his morale was going down from the app because, we hadn't built his PlayStation. And so the whole thing of these electrical faults was getting caused by trying to hook up a PlayStation 2 or something to all the stuff. It caused quite a few laughs. And that was just an introduction scenario with complete strangers. I think when this comes out, I really can't wait for this. I really enjoyed that demo. I didn't pre-order it. I'm an idiot for not doing that, but I guess I'm just a little bit pre-orders. But I'm certainly going to be grabbing this when it comes out, whether it's a review copy or I buy it myself. I don't care. I want this game because it was very enjoyable. It's more complex, I think, than Robinson Crusoe. I think there's a little bit more to take in, but they will have obviously hopefully learnt their lesson from the previous game and written a very good rulebook to go with it. Fingers crossed. And, I think it's going to be great. The app should be great. It was pretty well done at the time. It needed some extra polish, but obviously it's not finished yet. And I give props for Ignacity Trevicek for actually taking the time to delay the game until it's fully ready, because a lot of publishers won't do that, and that is annoying. Seriously, when you are not ready to release your game, don't release it. Don't worry about the trolls online who say that it's going to, my life isn't complete because I had to wait an extra couple of months for this game because I don't have, enough games to play right now. Get the game ready. But you've heard me before, I'm a patriot when it comes to apps in board games. I mean, you can't see it in this camera footage, but I mean, I've got XCOM over there. I really do like apps in games, and they do a good job. So really hoping that First Martians does well. Another game which had a Kickstarter that finished fairly recently was Petrichor. I didn't jump on the Kickstarter, and I don't regret that because I think I'll wait for this game to come out to try it some more. But this was the interesting, very pretty game where you control clouds that drop raindrops onto the tile fields like wheat and cotton and that. And depending on how many people had raindrops on there and what orders they're in, they scored so many points. You played these action cards that were based on the weather to do various things like generate a cloud, turn them into thunderclouds, generate raindrops, move them, and when they collide with other clouds, they become thunderclouds and all the gems combine. There's all sorts of really cool stuff you can do, especially to mess over other players. It can be quite a mean game, so be warned about that. But then, once you've done all this, depending what cards you used, you place these tokens on this voting board, effectively. And you're essentially voting. I suppose that's a weird term to use, but effectively, you're trying to decide what weather effect takes place at the end of a round. And 2 out of the 4 will go off, and as those ones get used, the other ones become more likely in a future turn to go off. And they all do different powerful effects as well that everybody on the board gets to do. And it gets you some points if you happen to have the most tokens in those areas. So there's a few cool things that you can do to get points. There's variable tile setups. There's an expansion with it that has a few flower fields and some extra bits. It was an interesting little game. I mean, I was on the fence with it. I didn't get told a certain rule, which I admit really destroyed me when I found out about it. Apparently, you are forced to do whatever weather effect happens. Even if it's technically a beneficial one, but you don't want it at the time, you still have to do it. And it completely messed up my entire game because it was a catastrophic thing that occurred from it. Oh well, that's what you do. You live and learn from a demo, I guess. But I want to try this one a little bit more when it comes out because I think it has good potential. It's a very simple game to get into. There's a good amount of depth, so the rules aren't complex, but there's certainly enough to think about, and there was multiple ways to get points. I'm interested to see more of this when it comes out, but it looks beautiful. You know, I think the finished copy is going to have slightly smaller tokens than that to make it a little bit more easier to see and visualize on the table, which is a bit of a shame because it did look gorgeous at the time of the bigger versions. But yeah, this one's a very pretty little game, and I'll be keen to give it another try when it comes out. A very unique game released by Artipia Games was one that I was very keen to try. It was called Kitchen Rush. This one is just so strong with its theme. The idea of running a kitchen in a restaurant is a very cool theme, hasn't been done that many times, but this one does it so well. And I'm not saying like the game's amazing, I'm just saying the theme is super strong. Everything you do in this game feels like running an actual kitchen in a restaurant. It simulates it perfectly. This is a very unique timed game though, because normally you have you do in this game, you have a timer for the whole round and you've got to get stuff done. But the workers you place, because it's worker placement, and the workers are actual hourglasses. And I don't just mean those like wooden hourglasses like in Pursuit of Happiness, for example. I'm talking about actual sand hourglasses. So you are basically putting these hourglasses on spots, and whilst your hourglass is there, you can do whatever you like in that spot for as long as the hourglass lasts, and they're about like 30 seconds a piece. You have 2 of them, so you can put one there, do your stuff, and then put a second one somewhere else. But you can't then take the other hourglass back until it runs out of time. It's a really cool concept. And you get the frenzy of multiple players going, got to go there, got to go shopping, need this, need money, I need to go get more meat. Where's the meat? Oh, it's in that storage. How do I cook this? Get it in the oven, bake it for so long. It really does do the theme complete justice. It was a prototypish version. I would be keen to try it out again when it comes out, later in the year, probably very late this year, might even be next year. It depends when the Kickstarter finishes and what they promise in delivery time. But yeah, I'm interested to see how this one turns out, because I think for a timed game, which I'm not the biggest fan of, with the exception of XCOM, I reckon it does this theme very strongly and is worth checking out, especially if you are a fan of that genre. By Alley Cat Games, this one was another hit of the convention. You couldn't buy it, but I think a lot of people demoed it and liked it, and that was Dice Hospital. This is a very simple dice sort of shenanigans game where you are trying to treat patients in your little hospital. You have these tiles which represent the different rooms, and you have 3 meeples for your nurses. There are 3 different colours of dice depending on whether they are like serious injury patients like trauma, blood loss patients, or pharmaceutical patients like illness, disease. And there's no difference between the 3, it's just the different colours, different types, different rooms affect different colours. You roll these dice and you place them on these 3 ambulances it depends how many players, but you place them on these ambulances, 3 per ambulance, and you rank them in order from 1 to 6, 6 being like, oh yeah, I'm fine, I've just stubbed my toe, and 1 being, I'm on death's door, please help me. And you draft these ambulances, you take it in turns to decide which ambulance do I want. And you might think, well, why don't you just take the one with the better patients? But you have the upgraded rooms you can buy, as well as these people like I don't know these names. I can't pronounce them. Cardiologist, a neurosurgeon, yeah, something like that. My pronunciation of that last one was really bad. But you have these ones to buy, and depending on which ambulance you choose, dictates the order in which you pick those upgrades. So it's like you can go for the ambulance with the people who have just stubbed their toe, but you're going to be last to pick up those cool upgrades, and you might really be gunning for something in that order. So you think, well, I really want that room, but do I want to take these people that are right near death because it's going to be hard and long to treat them? So you've got this cool decision to make there. And once you've got them, you put these things in front of you, you then assign the nurses to various rooms to do shenanigans with the dice. They increase the values, they affect multiple values, they do lots of dice that are the same value and they go up. It's all about dice shenanigans at the end of the day. As something that's been done before, but I think with the theme in here, it works quite well. And you don't have to think, it's a little controversial on the theme. Nah, the theme is very light-hearted in this, and we were joking a lot as we were playing because we were coming up with really stupid reasons as to why we had these 9 patients coming in. Like, you would roll the dice, and I would roll like a ton of 1s and 2s, and it's like Nakatomi Plaza had just exploded or something, and suddenly everybody's coming here like death's door. But then you might roll a ton of 5s and 6s, and it's just like, yeah, we've just got a bunch of people who are all paranoid at this point. It was great fun, and I really enjoyed it. There's a good amount of variety. It's in its prototype stage. It still looked quite nice. The graphic design was pretty straightforward in that. I think this will be a nice, simple, light dice game when it comes out, and I look forward to seeing its progression over time. Perfect Crime by Grubbling Games Publishing, based in Cornwall, more my neck of the woods, was another demo I was very keen to get my hands on, because I have been keeping an eye on this throughout its entire design stage. I've even interviewed the designer, Henry Jasper, on an earlier podcast, in my old days, and as much as that was an editing pain in the neck, it was still a good fun interview. Grubbling Games are also helping me get to Essen this year. I'll be helping them out on their booth, as well as hanging out with them in the evenings. So, fair props to them. They came to me for the request. I didn't have to go to them. It was very kind of them. But Perfect Crime is a game I've really been interested in, because this is a theme that I don't think has been done before, or if it hasn't been done well, and that is a bank heist. In Perfect Crime, you have an all versus one style game. And, you can play it sort of cooperatively, you can have the guys against each other, but to be honest, I think with the different modes, the best way to play it is one guy plays the bank, and everybody co-ops against that bank. I think that's the best way to play it. It's smoother, and it takes less time. Now, this one has essentially, the burglars are planning the heist. So you've got this map with tiles that are variable setup, 2 vaults with whatever in them. And through a planning phase, the bank is kitting it out with all sorts of guards and security systems, and we're talking high-tech systems here. We're talking anything from a basic CCTV camera to something crazy like, laser tripwires or something like Mission Impossible style. The robbers are planning by getting hold of people who might be able to help them, like, the fast talkers, the ones with all the tech whiz know-how. They're also getting gear, like ones that drills that can cut through vaults, and keypads, like fingerprint scanners and all sorts of things, even weapons like shotguns and C4. And, it's a really good theme. I've got to admit, yes, they have to abstract it in places because you can only do so much with it, but this theme looks like it's going to be super strong. I think they're going to get this one perfect theme-wise. But the crux of the game is going to come down to, because it's still in site development time and they're hoping to get it ready for Essen Spiel, is that, the whole point is that you can vary the play, the way that the bank does his job varies the play, what the robbers do vary the play. Like, for example, you could go super stealthy. You might decide that when you're going to do the actual heist, you have these meeples that you move around, and there's a specific way that turn sequence works. It's like 2 halves of it. It's like 2 different halves of the game, really. And when you're in the bank, you might decide, I'm going to go super stealthy. Let's go super stealthy. So you go in there, you sneak past all the cameras, you fast talk the guards, you get to the thing, you quietly drill through the thing, and, and get out without arousing too much suspicion. But then you could completely flip that on its head and decide, we're just going to ram break the place. Here's some C4, bomb this entrance right next to the vault, go in, grab it. Oh look, the alarm's straight off though, so you've got to deal with lots of armed police who come in very quickly, it seems, and, basically decimate you if you let them get too bad. So you've got different ways to play it, and different ways, and you can only afford so much equipment to begin with, so it's like, do we want to get past every lock? Or are we just going to crowbar the easy ones? Do we need weapons, or are we going to be so stealthy that we won't get the alarm raised? Or do we need to just say, don't care about this stuff, let's just get all the explosives, all the weapons, and just deal with the aftermath? Lots of different ways it looks like you can play this, and I'm very eager to see how this gets into its final development. But so far so good. I'm looking forward to how this one turns out in the long run. I think this has a very promising outlook. It's going to be one of those games that's going to be incredibly difficult to make sure it's streamlined and of an acceptable game length for what's involved. But I think this one could be a surefire hit if it's pulled off correctly, because bank heist games, name another one in the comments if you can let me know, but to be honest, I'm not aware of any. Certainly not of any major ones. If this could be like the first great game that pulls off a bank heist theme, it would be truly unique and innovative, and I think it would be deservingly so. And finally, because I want to get on to some other topics, I also playtested 3 games from Ludi Creations. I'm going to go over the 3 sort of very quickly now. One of them has got the stupidest name ever. I pronounce it as Ayunu, but I'm sure it's got some specific way you're supposed to pronounce it that doesn't sound anything like the way it's spelt. It's like I-U-N-U. I think the Kickstarter is still going, or it might have finished by now. But this is a little quick card game based on an Egyptian-style theme. It's an abstract card game. And you're essentially trying to get points by playing these various characters that all have different abilities, and you can only keep so many in your hand at the end of the turn. So you got to decide, I'm going to play this guy, like the farmer, and I'll get the bacon on as well, and now I've got to put these two in the middle for other people to take, but you take others from the middle as well. So you're constantly deciding, do I want to put these guys down, use these abilities? How am I going to use them? You know, do I give these ones back to the players? And also at the end of the game, you've got points for how many people you've fed and whether you've got the most of a particular type, like noble or artisan, for example. And it was a neat game. I actually thought it was pretty good. I think it might get a little bit long with more players, but, you know, it was a good starting point. Less keen on, but I can see it has potential, was Alexandria. This is a very sort of simplistic tile game where you are wandering around this like library, the Great Library of Alexandria, and 4 of you play asymmetric characters. You have different abilities and different roles. One of you is just out to let the whole place is burning down, and you're basically in there trying to get the most points by doing various things. It's very abstract. But one of you is trying to pretty much burn the place down to get points. One of you is trying to save, pottery, for example. One of you is trying to get a ton of books, to get points. And everyone plays very differently. So it's got some cool asymmetrical powers. But I just worry that, balance is going to be a hard thing to get with this game. And I just think the fact that it's very abstracted and the, character powers, they're different, but they're only so different. And the map is different every game, but it's not like a very extensive map. It's like basically a couple of corridors. I'm interested to see more when it gets finally finished, because it wasn't a full finished copy. But yeah, this was the weak link of the 3. This is the one I'm not as keen on. But I could see some potential there. The one I really was keen on though was an unexpected little gem actually, and that was Diesel Demolition Derby. Diesel Demolition Derby is a quick 30-minute drafting game. I thought it was going to be some crazy, yes, I kill you and you kill me in that. But no, it's actually a very clever drafting game. Each player will get dealt so many different cards, and there are all these various things like robot wars, essentially. The Eviscerator, the Titan, and all this lot. They've got varying strengths from 0 to 4. And what you're trying to do is at the end of every round, you want the highest strength out of all your dudes to begin with. I'll get on more on that later. But you draft the robots. So you'll pick one and decide, pass it on, and then simultaneously flip, and then the effects go off. And some of them are based if there are no other, I forget their names, but if there's no other Ravager robots, for example, then this ability goes off, and this other guy might kill the robot with the highest power. So they all key off each other, and you're trying to outthink your opponents because you only draft about 4 cards. I think it depends on players, but you only draft about 4 cards, and you're there thinking, right, well, I'm going to choose this one first. Now I'm passing on some very high powered cards here, and then you get the next 4 and you go, this one kills all the high power cards. Well, someone's going to play one of those in a minute. You know what? I'll play him now. I reckon they don't know. He doesn't know this one's coming, so I'm going to do this. And this constantly, this whole thing of what robot can I play versus what am I giving the opponents versus what do I think they're going to play. This is a very nice little thinky drafting game, but it wraps up in about 30, 45 minutes max, so it's quite quick. And the best thing about it is that you might think, well, that's going to get very samey, you just get the highest power. No. You have these arena cards, which are a bit like the bases and Smash Up. They all have different abilities that affect the round. So you might be fighting in one arena that says, you know what, you don't need the highest power anymore, you need the most number of robots. And then another one might say that, these particular robots are actually more powerful than others, or you might have to draft the opposite direction now. And there's all sorts of ways that these arenas change up each round to make the game a little bit more dynamic and a bit more fun. I'm interested in this one actually. It just seemed like a very nice little drafting game. Drafting is a fun mechanic. It's a little more thinky than something like Sushi Go in that, so I wouldn't say it was a gateway level game, but I think for gamers this would be quite a fun little thing, and it was a hidden gem because I was expecting this to be the weak link of the 3, and this turned out to be the best one of the 3. So, I like it when the hidden gems pop up like that. so I'll look out more for Diesel Demolition Derby in the future. Woo! That was a lot of games to talk about. Well, the next few topics shouldn't be too long. That was the lengthy part of this video. And now, just to go over quickly a few games that I bought. I didn't buy that many games, I must admit, but I did buy Spyfall 2 because I wanted more cards for Spyfall. You know, Spyfall's a great game. It's over there. You can't. I don't think you can see it. It's out of shop, but I do really like Spyfall, and I've been umming and ahhing about buying the expansion. And in the end, I just thought 2 spies, more locations, sold. Why not? I also grabbed the expansion to Suburbia, Suburbia Inc., because I've got Suburbia on my shelf right there. And I do really like this game. I like it and Castle Magic in Ludwig. But the expansion for Suburbia is a must. Not necessarily the 5-star one. I'm kind of like, I'm not too fussed about getting that one. But the Suburbia Inc. with the borders that allow you to build these really crazy little cities, I think that's a must for the game to get the full enjoyment out of it. So I was glad to pick that one up, because I seem to find that's quite hard to get hold of at the moment. A couple of second-hand sales or clearance sales involved me getting Airlines Europe, which is not a new game, but I've played it once before. It's one which has like Ticket to Ride style map with putting airplanes on routes, but you have a stock market system where, depending on which planes get built, affect the value of the markets. And if you can hear an ice cream van at the moment, then I apologise for that. But the idea with it is that you have to balance out building up these airlines, but also having the shares to capitalize on in the future. And I don't normally like stock market games, but this is a very simple entry-level stock market game, and it's very dynamic and very cool. So, I was glad to get this one in an English version, even though it was second-hand. On clearance was a little game called Trieste, which I never thought I would see in a shop ever, because the only time I'd ever heard of this game, and I bet none of you have any idea what I'm talking about right now, but Z Garcia, on a very old top 10 list, it was a top 10 games for free players, came up with this card game called Trieste. And the reason why this is so unique is because it only plays free players. You can't play it with any other player count. You have these 3 different roles. I think you have a thief, city watch, and merchant. And each one has their own deck of about 30 cards, and each one plays off each other. Think of it like a triangle, and each of the points is a different role. So the merchant might be trying to, dodge the thief whilst dealing with the city watch. The thief is trying to steal from the merchant whilst evading the city watch. And the city watch may be trying to get cool stuff from the merchant whilst trying to catch the thief. I forget how exactly it works, but basically they're asymmetrical and they work off each other. You're basically trying to get your points from one guy whilst trying not to lose points from a direct response of another person. And that just sounded really cool. And for £14 on clearance, you know what? I thought I'd take a try because this sounds like a cool little neat card game. And Z Garcia does have a habit of coming up with some hidden gems that I never thought I would buy that suddenly I buy and really like. Biblios, Yinch, High, Friday, stuff like that. These really obscure games that are just like, ooh, actually these are really good. I've got to try them out. I also bought a ton of organisers for various games like Scythe and that. You might have seen photos go up on my Facebook and Twitter feed recently where I just built, not all of these came from the Expo. Some were also from Philibert in France and Optical Power in the UK. But they were I bought a ton of organisers lately. I've got Scythe, Suburbia, 2 of the Legendary Encounter ones, Lords of Waterdeep. I've got a big box for my Lord of the Rings LCG that's on top of my shelf. That's taking up too much space. One for my Arkham Horror LCG, which is quickly getting too big for its britches and the folders and that. And I also got this huge Arkham Vault, which allows me to store, hopefully, all of my Arkham Horror games, which you can't see, but all of my Arkham Horror stuff, as well as my Eldritch Horror stuff. Oh yes, that would be good, because that will save up a lot of space on my shelf. I can just put this on top of the shelf, and then suddenly, oh look, more shelf space, more games. Don't you just love it when things go your way like that? We'll see, but you will have seen those, and I did buy a few more of those organisers. But the highlight, the highlight of the day was, I'm not going to get it for you right now. I'll maybe do another video on it another time, or you'll just have to deal with the picture. But, some of you who have seen me at DICE Portsmouth events or just seen my photo footage of it will know that I like to showcase Deluxe Takinoko when I'm there, the one with the panda and the bamboo, because the deluxe version is like the panda's about this big and the bamboo pieces are like chunky things. It's like really cool. Love it. Love Takinoko the bits. It's been a top 10 game at least 2 years on the trot now. Whether it's still there this year, I don't know, but it's still one of my favourite games. I just love the light-hearted theme of it. Well, I've been waiting ages for Takinoko Chibis, the expansion, to come out in deluxe form, because I have it in my normal version of Takinoko, but I didn't have the deluxe version because they hadn't brought it to the EU yet, and they did. It was a small stock. It wasn't even at the Expo technically. I pre-ordered it from Thirsty Meeples and they brought it to the Expo. But yes, nice little crate. Take it away. Too much money, but it just looked great. And now I have the jumbo female panda along with all the other new tiles and expansion stuff. It's a shame that they didn't put giant miniatures for all the little panda babies, but I think the cost would have just skyrocketed at that point. But I'm happy with deluxe size tokens. But yes, now I can combine Chibis with Takinoko in deluxe form. Fantastic game. Can't wait to get that out of the box and showcase that at another Dice Portsmouth event. In terms of other events that took place whilst I was there, obviously I met a lot of people who watched the blog and everything. I met a lot of other podcasters and reviewers, No Pun Included and Angel of Dice and Game Pit Podcast and Breacher 18 and all that. There were loads of people there, from other countries as well as the UK. I mean, this is a great gathering for seeing all these people, come to one place just to gather and talk about board games. It's such a lovely experience. But I was helping out on the Dice Tower booth for a lot of the time, and it was fun to be on the booth. It may sound boring just standing there and selling promos, but you get to talk to loads of people who come by and say hi, as well as hang out with whoever you're helping out with. I got to hang out with Jay for a bit of the time. I also got to hang out with Dave Lucer, who's I hope I pronounced his surname correctly, but he's a great funny guy. And also got to hang out with Tom, Sam and Z for periods of time on there, so that was all good fun. The Dice Tower live show took place as per usual, which was a top 5 exciting moments in gaming. Now, I was only brought on for one particular piece, but they did it with No Pun Included. It was a very funny session. I think the banter with all 5 of them was really good, and it's a great show to watch. They've got it up on their YouTube channel now, so I do recommend checking it out. But it was also good to do the contributor segment of it at the end. I had to do mine quite quick, so I had to go and rescue another person from the booth so they could come and do theirs. It was somewhat in and out. But there were some good stories there from the Dice Tower crew, and I strongly urge you to watch the video. Not because of my piece specifically, no. I mean, I had a little piece about going to Essen for the first time and being overwhelmed and acting like a complete crazed lunatic. It was quite a funny little piece. But I urge you to watch that video for Dave Lucer's spiel that he gave. This was the worst time I could have come onto the segment to do my bit. Because talk about having the bar set so high that I need a crane to get over the thing. Because everybody came up with a good story, but Dave, oh my god. He tells a story about how he was in the ward with his wife who was waiting to give birth to a baby that just refusing to come out, refusing to give birth, and how he was playing multiple games of Agricola while waiting for her to give birth. I won't go into too many spoilers, but it's a fantastic story. It is heartfelt, it is hilarious, and it's told so well. It was definitely probably the best one said in that entire segment. And I urge you to watch the video just to check out that story alone. He's on straight after the Dice Tower and No Pun Included finished their segments and before me. So I don't know how far into the video it is, but watch the whole thing. I think everybody came up with decent segments. But yeah, Dave, honestly, you're probably not watching this vid, but respect, man. That was such a good story. Once the whole thing had finished, we helped the Dice Tower to pack up their booth. And we were able to, we were invited out to dinner with them. Because of all the stuff we were doing to help out, which was a very nice gesture. Normally they just do it for Kickstarter backers. It was very nice and welcome to, pop out for dinner with them. And we were going to go out for burgers. There was a gourmet burger restaurant nearby, but we had a problem. There was a Take That concert on, and it meant that the wait time was something like 2 hours for a restaurant. So what was Tom's bright idea? We do the burgers afterwards and go watch Wonder Woman as well. So After the expo finishes, I get to hang out with not only the Dice Tower crew, but also Jay and Laura from Breach 18. I get to hang out with other podcasters there as well. I got to hang out with, the founder of Z-Man Games is there as well. And, oh my word, we get to spend the whole evening after an expo watching Wonder Woman, which, by the way, is a fantastic film. If I get time, I'll do a video review of that, actually, as a movie review. But, yeah, it's a great film, definitely worth checking out. And also eating burgers with the crew. I didn't care for the fact that I had to drive home all the way to Portsmouth and didn't get home until something like 1 in the morning and had work the next day. I didn't care, because this was worth the evening. It was a great way to end it, and thank you, Tom, for inviting us out, because it was a great time, and I look forward to doing something like that again in the future. Some specific stuff I want to go over in terms of juicy gossip. I mean, there wasn't a huge amount of, I wasn't doing interviews with everybody. It's not my style. I don't wander around with a video camera doing audio interviews. There are other people who do better jobs like that, Two can play that game and stuff like that. But I did do one interview, and that was with the creator-founder of DIZED, DIZED. This is an app that has been in development for a while and is going to continue to be in development, but this is one that is supposed to be doing a lot of rule tutorials. So essentially, it's the idea is that you won't need the rulebook. You'll be able to take this game and you'll be able to load up this app. It will have the thing on there. I think they had the demo of Bang, the original Bang, but they'll do other games as well. And these will be interactive, they'll have sound effects, they'll have visual aids. And the idea being that you should be able to literally just get out the components and it will tell you how to set it up, it will tell you how to play it, like some few turns, and it will take you through your first game. Because let's face it, with most games, the first game is more of an asterisk learning game anyway. Now this is something that I'm keen to see it work. It's got a lot of competition though, I will say, because after all, when you say that you're going to make a collection of rule tutorials and that, you're effectively going up against people like Paul Grogan and Rodney Rothschild Page, who do very good rule run-through videos. So you need to really, step up your game if you're going to do that. But so far, I'm liking what I see. These tutorials are very good. They're very well done. There's effort being put into them. They're not just blank canvases or anything. And publishers are going to them and saying, we want to have our games done by you. So there's going to be a lot of them in the future, but obviously this is an app that's going to take a long time to develop, a long time to get sorted, but there's a lot of people involved with this project, and it looks like it's going to be certainly one to keep an eye on. They will soon be doing a campaign on Indiegogo around August time to basically, a bit like Kickstarter, but to fund it. I'll be certainly keeping an eye out to see if it's worth putting some money towards that. They have 7 games in project currently, one involving Bang and 6 others, which they weren't allowed to disclose. They'll probably do that closer to the Indiegogo time, but they'll do other games as well, and obviously some complex stuff will go on there and some easier stuff will go on there. Some other cool features is that it only teaches you the rules as you go through. There's an annoying little quirk that a lot of people do when they teach games. I quickly got out of this habit, but what I don't like is when someone tries to teach you every single rule in the game. Now sometimes you can't avoid that, it's just the way the game plays, particularly with a lot of the strategic ones. But there are some games where you think, you know what, I can just teach them this for now, and then later on we'll teach that bit when it's relevant. That's what this app tries to do. It only teaches you enough rules to get you going. And then as you go through the first couple of turns, then it will teach you the rules about, say, this particular phase or this element of scoring. So it keeps it in nice little bite-sized chunks. After all, the first game is just a learning game. It's not meant to be like the be-all, end-all, game to decide the fate of the world or anything. So that's a neat little thing, and I hope it does carry on in that fashion, because I think that's a good way to teach games, particularly co-ops. Because at the end of the day, if you lose your first co-op, it's a learning game, who cares? At least you learnt the game. And there are certainly some games like maybe, what co-ops could I think of that would work well with this? Ghost Stories be a good one, because that one has some fiddly rules in it. I think that would be a very nice one. You could certainly teach something like Flashpoint Fire Rescue, I think might benefit, because then it could teach you the setup rules, and then it teaches you just how to do your turn, and then teaches you the fire and how that works. That could work quite well. There's a lot of potential for various games to be done with this app. You will also get a search function to go through the whole app, and you'll get a digital version of the rulebook as well. So if you just want to literally skim through the entire rulebook, you will at least get a PDF version of that. There'll be, targeted games for various platforms. I mean, they're going to do it on Android and, Apple for a start. Maybe they'll do it on Steam, I don't know. I don't think you would desperately need it on Steam. I think just having it on Android and Apple would do fine. And it's also going to be optimized for phones, but it will still work on tablets. So it will still blow up to whatever normal tablet size. But the idea with that is that everybody is pretty much running around with a smartphone these days. Not everybody is running around with a tablet. So therefore, it makes more business sense to optimize it for a phone rather than a tablet. But I think it will still work on both, and that's fine because I use I've got my phone, I've got my tablets. It all works in the same format. There will be some other limitations that they'll have to contend with, but the fact of the matter is, this is as much information as I've got for now. It's looking promising. The demo was very cool. The ideas for how this is going to work are very promising. But the big key is that come August 2017, there will be an Indiegogo campaign that's going to reveal a lot more. So certainly keep an eye out and see whether the DIZED app is for you. Maybe it's something you want to put some money towards, help them out. Or, do you think it's even worth your time? I don't know. Leave it in the comments if you happen to chat to them at the same time. They had a booth there. It was a, fairly central booth, so I think everybody would have passed by it. But, let me know your thoughts. Do you think this app's a good idea? Do you think it's a waste of money? Do you think we don't need it? Or do you think this is, possibly like something that we really, really need in, board gaming in general? This is going on a while, so I'm going to wrap it up there, folks. Just to say that, of course, the UK Games Expo was a great success. I really enjoyed it. Yes, there were the niggling issues like the Monarch Suite I mentioned earlier, but there's going to be more space next year. I think we're going to have 2 whole halls for the trade thing next year. I mean, that's going to be ridiculous. Hopefully they'll get more space for the open gaming, because that's the big thing they need to sort out right now. The Bring and Buy has its issues where people troll it by camping outside it pretty much and then sniping all the stuff as it comes out, boo to you. But to be fair, I only go to the Bring and Buy to sell games anyway. I rarely go it to buy stuff, so it doesn't bother me as much. But yeah, I can see why people get a little bit wound up by that. But certainly I want to see more open gaming. I want to see more space so that when the trade hall finishes, there isn't this massive, got to get a table quick, no, problems that. And I want to see more than flags around the place, alright? I know you have them in the library room sometimes. I'm not even sure if you had them this year, but I want flags in the rooms. I don't want to have to go all the way to your library just to get a flag, alright? So those flags, if you don't know what I'm on about, where you have a flag next to your game and it's basically a sign saying players wanted, perfect. Because when you're walking around this giant room full of people playing games, how on earth do you know where to go? Do you know if somebody's looking for players? Do you know if somebody doesn't want to see your face come anywhere near them? You have no idea. So with the flags, you basically can just say, look, here's the box lid, here's the flag, and then people can clearly say, that on your table you have a game of Cosmic Encounter set up, and there's 3 of you, and you want more players. And we were lucky enough to get a very fun game of Cosmic Encounter out, as well as some games of Ethnos that I taught as well. But yeah, it was a nightmare trying to get tables and do that. So please, Expo organisers, do not skimp on open gaming space. Get whatever rooms you can. Even if you've got to up the cost of the expo by a few quid, who cares? What do we pay? Something like 25 to £30 or something for a 3-day ticket, and not everybody even comes for the whole day? Just up it by a £5, up it by a £10. I'm sure people will still pay it. It's not like it's going to break your money bank by paying an extra £5, £10 for the convention. And when you're talking 16,000 plus unique attendees, don't you think that would raise a ton of cash for you to just get some extra space for open gaming and make the whole thing a lot better? It would just, it would work. I don't think there's an excuse really. I think if you can get those rooms, get those rooms. Yes, okay, if they're held up with other conventions and that, you can only do so much, but, that's all you can do. You've got to try at least. I just think that's the big improvement you need to work on. But everything else, sorted. Like the trade hall, I think your layout was perfect this time round. You know, the award stand in a corner, the open game in another corner, you know, food on the corners, you know, so you didn't have all this stuff in the middle of the area that was getting clogged up by people just standing around. It worked very well with this layout, and I think, you know, keep that up for next year, because I think that was particularly well thought out. I will definitely be there next year though, so I believe the dates for 2018 are the 1st to the 3rd of June. I have already pre-booked my room at the Ibis Styles Hotel, which I went to briefly this year for Paul Grogan's little get-together and raffle. But, you know, the hotel itself is fine, it's an Ibis, it's nothing special, but the Hilton Hotel was just getting stupidly expensive for rooms. You know, I was already paying a premium to go there every year for convenience, but now that we're at the NEC Centre and open gaming is kind of all over the place, I'm kind of like, you know what, as long as I can walk to the NEC, I'm not too fussed. So I'm happy enough to stay in any nearby hotel, and the Ibis Stars was a lot cheaper. But there's a chance you might get some rooms on a cheap rate in the future, especially for the Hilton. And if one of them does come out, you know, I have got free cancellation, so, you know, I might change hotels in the long run, but I'm definitely going next year. That is not a problem. Nothing is going to stop me. Well, okay, maybe an act of God or a debilitating illness, something might do. But no, I'm going to make every effort to get there next year, because it's so much fun to go to what is now the 3rd biggest convention in the UK. Sorry, in the world. Not the UK, the world. So that's it for me. I'm going to get off because I got a lot of stuff to do with all those organisers that I've been building. Obviously, I want to get this video out to you nice and soon. Yes, as I mentioned in the FAQ program, the promo program, whatever, the Broken Meeple is back for season 2, and I want to churn out more of this video content. This was the first major article video I did. And now, from this point, I can do the occasional movie review. I've got game reviews to do, you know, things like Century Spice Road and Barron Park, and possibly even Yokohama, and what else was there? Oh, and Colosseum. You know, some other games that I want to get reviewed. Hopefully they can come out on video. So, yeah, future's bright. So that's it for me. I hope that if you spoke to me at the UK Games Expo, you know, thank you for doing that. It meant a lot for you to come and say hi and just give your thoughts and feedback. You know, if you were a fellow podcaster or publisher who came by, it was great to meet you. It's, you know, I wish we could see each other more often, but, you know, UK's a big place, and so is Europe and the world. So, you know, I look forward to seeing you guys again. Thank you, everyone, for attending the expo. It was a great event. So I'm going to leave you for the rest of this weekend with just the same thought as I do in every video. Take care, and remember, it's only a game.